Welcome to Scriptural Snapshots, brought to you by Living Faith Ministries in Kaiser, West Virginia, where we bring the living Word of God into your life. I'm Pastor Gordon Brubaker. We're talking about coming out of bondage, out of captivity. We've talked about Luke chapter 4, verses 18, 19, where Jesus said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord." This is the mission of Jesus, to proclaim captive or liberty to the captives. And this is where we're getting our theme of out of captivity. But it's hard to talk about coming out of captivity if you don't know how we got into captivity to start with. Because there's basically, as near as I can tell, there's basically three different ways we actually come into captivity. And the first is real simple. It's by forced captivity. It's like another nation has invaded you, and they've taken control of the country, and they say, okay, you are all slaves, and we're going to take you out of this nation and carry you to our main city. We're going to enslave you there, and you'll do whatever we tell you to do. And excuse me, this is a pretty obvious one. It's Babylon took Israel captive, the whole nation, and basically drove them out of Israel, took them all out. Now, they did this because that would destroy opposition to Babylon, because if they took them into captivity and scattered the nation, then they would lose their national identity. Once you've lost your national identity, it's almost impossible to get it back. And the United States right now is being scattered through people that are using the power of division, of hate, of suspicion to make us suspect every other one, our neighbors and everything else. Excuse me. Oh my goodness, I hope I can cut that out. But they sow the seed of discord, the seed of separation, because they want to take you into captivity. They teach you that blacks hate whites, whites hate black, Asians hate Mexicans hate Latinos, just all this stuff up in the air. And it's like, boy, you can't trust anybody. They lie to your face. I'm for you. I'm going to vote for this. And they get into D.C. and they don't vote for it. Or they get into your state and they vote opposite of what they told you in the election they were going to vote for. And we're surrounded by them. And they do this to sow confusion, that you don't trust anybody anymore. And I'll tell you, one of the things that has happened in the United States, people have come up with the conclusion, my vote really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether I vote Democrat or Republican, because both parties do exactly the same thing. And for too long, that's been true. Now, I'm all for debate. I'm all for different discussions, and we need to talk about things. But I'll tell you, we've been in a place, I'm 72 years old now, and we've been in a place for 72 years, you can't talk about nothing. I can't tell you how long ago it was. People said, we need to have a serious discussion on race in America. I agree. We need to have a discussion. But every time you begin to discuss it, one side calls you a racist and the other one calls you other names. And it's like, we can't even get together and talk about it. I was asked to be on a reconciliation committee one time. And you know what that's all about. But I told the person, they said, well, I think you would really be good for one. I think you could really add to us. I said, well, I thank you. But I said, I'll tell you up front, I'm against all racism. I said, I don't care who it's coming from, black or white. It doesn't matter. I am against hatred. I am against the things that divide us. And the man looked at me, and he was a preacher. Man looked at me and says, I don't think you're one that we would like on the committee. I said, no, probably not. Because, see, they wanted me to just pick one side. Well, I do pick one side, the Lord's side. And I'm going to follow what the Lord has to say. And I'm not going to bow my knee to any single political viewpoint, because I'm going to take God's viewpoint. Because men will manipulate God so that God will support what they believe he ought to do. I like Abraham Lincoln. He was asked during the war, is God on our side? And he fought for the Union to free the slaves. He said, is God on our side? And Abraham Lincoln looked back at the man and says, it doesn't concern me whether the Lord is on our side or not. He said, I want to be sure we're on the Lord's side. And see, this is where we are today. We've got to choose to be on the Lord's side, because if you are not, people will take you into captivity by force. They will force you to bend the knee, force you to bow to their their viewpoint, their ideology. They will force you to bow. The church tried that back hundreds of years ago, not yesterday, hundreds of years ago, and it didn't work. Nations try to do it today, and it still doesn't work, because God has placed within every person a desire for liberty, a desire for freedom. Some respond and some don't because they're in captivity. But God has set that in every heart to believe in God, to know that God is real. So we don't want to be like that. We don't want to come into captivity. We don't want to be forced into it. We want to serve God and obey Him. I'm Pastor Gordon Brubaker. God bless you.